How do you hire a coach you've wanted for years only to sack him before he even finishes a season? Because that's exactly what Real Madrid did with Xabi Alonso. And no, this wasn't about results, this wasn't about tactics, this wasn't even about losing a final. This was about power. Real Madrid is not just a football team, it's the most successful club in the history of the sport. More trophies than anyone, more global fans than anyone, and more pressure than anyone. At Real Madrid, finishing second is considered failure, and rebuilding patiently is seen as weakness. Everything is about winning immediately, and more importantly, about staying in control. At the center of all of this is Florentino Pérez, the club's president. If you don't follow football, think of Perez as the longtime CEO of a massive corporation. Coaches come and go, players change, systems evolve, but Perez stays. He decides the vision, the signings, and ultimately who stays and who leaves. That detail matters because nothing that happens at Real Madrid is accidental. In May, Perez finally hired a man he had been interested in for years, Xabi Alonso. Alonso is a former Real Madrid player who had quickly built a reputation as one of the smartest young coaches in Europe. At his previous club, he took a modest team and turned them into an organized, disciplined, and highly competitive force. His teams worked hard, followed structure, and played with purpose. To many people, he looked like the future of modern coaching. So when Real Madrid appointed him, the idea sounded simple and logical. Alonso would fix bad habits, he would bring structure back, he would modernize the team and build something sustainable. On paper, it made perfect sense. In reality, it was a terrible match. From the moment Alonso arrived, he walked into a dressing room that had been shaped by years of very different style of leadership. Under the previous coach, players were given freedom, training was lighter, senior stars had influence. As long as results came, nobody asked too many questions. That environment created comfort, and it also created habits that Alonso immediately disliked. So he changed things. Training sessions became more intense, tactical meetings became longer and more detailed. Players were expected to be punctual, focused, and fully engaged. No one, no matter how famous, was guaranteed a starting spot. From a professional standpoint, none of this was unreasonable. In most jobs, this would be called accountability. But Real Madrid is not most jobs. Some players bought into Alonso's ideas immediately. Others quietly resisted. They didn't like the extra meetings. They didn't like being told exactly where to stand or what to do. They didn't like the feeling of being controlled after years of freedom. Slowly, without the fans noticing, frustration began to spread inside the squad. What made the situation confusing was that, at first, everything looked fine. Real Madrid were winning games. In fact, they were winning a lot. From the outside, it looked like the project was working. Inside the club, it felt very different. Tension reached a visible point during the Spanish Super Cup final against Barcelona. Real Madrid lost the match 3-2, but it was close and competitive. This wasn't humiliation. If anything, the performance suggested progress. Yet, after the final whistle, something happened that revealed far more than the result itself. As Barcelona prepared to lift the trophy, Alonso gestured to his players, seemingly asking them to stand respectfully. Instead of following him, the players went the other way, guided by one of the team's biggest stars, Kylian Mbappe. Alonso turned around, realized his players were ignoring him, and simply stopped. The moment lasted only seconds, but it said everything. In public, on a global stage, the manager had been overruled by his own players. At Real Madrid, that is unforgivable. Authority matters more than tactics. Once players stop listening, the job is effectively over, and from that moment on, Alonso's fate was sealed. The most complicated relationship of all was between Alonso and Vinicius Jr., one of the club's most talented and valuable players. Vinicius is young, emotional, and hugely important to Real Madrid's future. Alonso frequently substituted him during matches, sometimes even when he was playing well. From Alonso's perspective, this was tactical. From Vinicius' perspective, it felt personal. During one match after being substituted, Vinicius walked straight into the tunnel shouting that he wanted to leave the team. It was a public outburst that shocked fans. But what happened afterwards mattered even more. Vinicius met privately with Florentino Pérez. He apologized for his behavior, but he also made something very clear. He did not want to discuss renewing his contract while Xabi Alonso remained the coach. That conversation changed everything. At clubs like Real Madrid, star players are long-term assets. Coaches are temporary. When a choice has to be made, the coach almost always loses. From that point on, Alonso was no longer just a manager with tactical disagreements. He was a problem that threatened stability at the highest level. What makes this story so strange is that Alonso wasn't failing in the traditional sense. The team wasn't collapsing. They were still competitive. The stadium crowd often whistled the players, not the coach. But behind closed doors, the leadership saw a deeper issue. A dressing room divided, unhappy stars, and the risk of losing control. So they did what Real Madrid had always done. They chose the easiest solution. They fired the coach. The club announced the departure as a mutual agreement, but those close to Alonso strongly disagreed. This wasn't mutual. Alonso reportedly told the club directly that the decision was unfair and that he was being punished for standing up to player power. Many observers agreed. Even people outside the club criticized the move, saying it was another example of Real Madrid avoiding long-term solutions in favor of short-term comfort. To be clear, Alonso was not perfect. His substitutions frustrated players. His rotation choices were questioned. The football was not always spectacular. But this was not a simple case of a bad coach failing at a big club. This was a cultural clash. Alonso was hired to impose discipline at a place that does not like discipline. He wanted structure in an environment built on star freedom. He wanted patience in a club addicted to instant success. Those things rarely coexist. And this is where the story becomes bigger than Alonso. In the end, this story isn't really about football. It's about what happens when an organization becomes so powerful that it stops tolerating discomfort. It's about choosing harmony over growth and control over change. At Real Madrid, no matter how talented you are, no matter how modern your ideas are, one truth always remains. Florentino Pérez has the final say, and when he decides, the story is already over. That's why Xabi Alonso's time at Real Madrid never really had a chance to begin.